All right, everybody, I'm going to go. There we go. I feel so bad because eventually I'm going to try to find the old intro that I had when I first started, and I had Ernst Junger. So I just started getting back into Ernst Junger. I treat books like wine. You know, some books, you know, maybe I don't see them right away, but eventually, if I start getting into them, then I say, oh, now this makes sense. Oh, okay. And sometimes, you know, you have to be ready to take these books in. And if you'll allow me just a moment, because I think my where I put my book is in there. So if you'll give me just a moment, folks, just talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Okie dokie. I have the book, The Worker, Dominion, and Form by Ernst Junger. So I have read On Pain by Ernst Junger. I did read that on stream, but I have a couple of quotes from Ernst Junger, which I think are very important. So when he's talking about revolution, this and that, here's what Ernst Junger has to say. Second, any front that confines a worker to a combat position limited to an attack, Angriff, on society can only be regarded as a provisional front. Merely one of initial vanguard skirmishes. For this word, too, has been simply devalued in the bourgeois age. It has acquired a particular meaning whose sense is a negation of the state as the highest instrument of power. I think that's a great quote from Junger here. And for those that are looking at the book, that is from the second chapter, The Worker Reflected in the Mirror of the Bourgeois World. So I think it's interesting. What's going on, Mongoose Man? But I think it's interesting to read these quotes from Junger, because I do find them interesting. And I think that they do kind of speak to a larger thing. You know, I think that you can say this about the time. You know, kind of when I read this, I was like, oh, this kind of represents today, like I said. And you can make that comparison. You know, when confine the worker to a combat position limited to an attack on society, this is what can be, you can make that comparison kind of with BLM and the riots that occurred this summer and, you know, things that went out of control. Of course, they'll say, oh, it was mostly peaceful, this and that. You know, apart from the burning buildings and everything, we didn't have anything to do with that. You know, like I said, there are plenty of folks who say that. A second quote from Junger. This is a bit longer, so just bear with me. I'm not the best reader, but the bourgeois also rejects the highest justification for war, the attack, but he probably feels that he is not up to it. Because he probably feels he's not up to it. And when he calls on soldiers for assistance or disguises himself as a soldier, I'll buy it out of the most obvious self-interest. He will never be able to do so without swearing that it is only in self-defense and, as far as possible, in the defense of humanity. This is very, very true. This can, like I say, I think Ernst Junger was a guy who I think was in the same vein as people like Ernst Niekisch and Karl Otto Pytel. He was in the same line, but he was separate from Klaus von Stauffenberg, this and that. As far as I know, he disliked the Nazi regime, but he played along. He was part of the occupation army in France. He got to meet a lot of French writers, this and that, and got to rub elbows with those types. So in general, it sounds like he got to vibe and everything else like that, and kind of had more of an outright, dare I say it, but a third positionist opinion, where it's like, yeah, he didn't love the Nazi regime. They searched his house, this and that. He didn't like Storm of Steel being used as propaganda, this and that. But I think that there are some good quotes there. So that first one can be, like I say, to me that quote can be compared to what he said, can be compared to what happened last summer in the United States. Actually, let me change this title right quick here. Yeah, commentary on some Ernst Junger quotes from The Worker. I'm sorry. There we go. That way he can be, yeah. His hatred became more stronger when his son was killed. Oh, yeah. I'm sure, yeah, that's true. Nazi couldn't kill him because he was too popular. Yeah, that's true. That's true as well. I think that Ernst Junger was able to play this sort of position fairly well because he was a fairly popular guy, and he, like I say, a lot of people don't like to. They're not sure how to paint Ernst Junger. That's the whole thing. People don't like to talk about him because they'll just say, "Oh, he was an evil right winger" or whatever. In general, I think he was more nuanced than that. I have not read books like Odysee. I haven't read that book. I haven't read a lot of his stuff, but I think that he has some good stuff, and I think it's fairly understandable if you can really concentrate. You can understand his work a lot easier than a lot of other writers out there and philosophers, because he is considered a philosopher. I mean, it's hard to say because obviously I'm not German, and people like Julie feel as he wants to about him, but I think Julie in general can have a better understanding and obviously have more connection to Ernst Junger than someone like me. But I think that he put out some great work, and I think that, like I say, I'm sitting here kissing his butt. I mean, he's been dead for however long. Odysee is expensive. Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. But basically, it's just kind of like you're just kind of like an anarch society. Not an anarchist society, but more of like an anarch society. What else can really be said? I think that and on the second quote, hearing that he that the bourgeoisie could never go to war, this and that, and claimed that they are going to save humanity. I think that somewhat you can say that with like I say, this book, that the book The Worker came out in 1932, but yeah. Translation: take away the meaning. Germans have words that don't really have English equivalents. Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. What was I going to say with that? But I think when he's talking about the bourgeoisie, you could obviously see that with with Afghanistan, right? And you see, I mean, I've had my blood boil for no reason, but I've heard these pitiful. It's basically right wing Max Stirner. Oh, okay. What I was going to say is with the second quote being about Afghanistan and saying, you hear these, horrible politicians who are like, well, we have to decide whether we're going to be a superpower or not. That decision has already been made. We are no longer a superpower. Not the same way. We are clinging to it as hard as we can. But we see that China is up there right now on the cliff, and their boot is on our foot. I'm sorry. Their boot is on our foot. I'm sorry. The boot is on our hand. Ooh, get it together. Come on. The boot is on our hand right now. And it's just slowly kind of just squishing us in, And that's where we are, We are desperately hanging on. It's just like, some of the other countries are like, should we help them or should we just let them fall? And I think that's where the United States is at. Now, I don't even say that as like, oh, the U.S. is going to do like, like all these action movies and grab them by the feet and make them both go down. Or, maybe they'll be like Sherlock Holmes and, and he's finally going to take down Moriarty. I don't know about that, but yeah. I think that, I just think that's where we are. And I think that Ernst Junger, just in these few pages, has outlined a lot of what is true. I think that he's much more of a realistic writer. Even Heidegger wrote highly about this particular work, The Worker, Dominion, and Form. And like I say, I am sure, and I'll probably wrap this up pretty soon. I am sure that this is not the best version, and that if I actually spoke German and actually read German, then I'm sure this would be more impactful and I could understand it better. Like I said, there are some words and quotes as I was reading there when talking about attack. It's Angriff. Watching a lot of, war movies and whatnot, you at least know the word Angriff. But I think that Ernst Junger is somebody that has come up again, has come back to the forefront. This is the same thing even with people that were also kind of in between, but weren't really loyal to the Nazi cause, such as Carl Schmitt, right? We've seen in the past 5 or 6 years that obviously Carl Schmitt, Ernst Junger are getting recognition again. And they're getting more face time. Obviously same thing can be said for A. James Gregor as well. But that has more to do with people trying to defend the idea of fascism. Take it for what it is, right? I do have a couple of A. James Gregor books on my shelf, The Faces of Janus. I do have another one as well. I can't think of it offhand, but, I think that these are folks that are redeemable. Albert Speer is not really redeemable in people's eyes. Robert Ley, the head of the German Labor Front, is not really redeemable. Various folks that were full-on loyal to the Nazi Party and the Nazi cause are not redeemable. But there are other folks who can have some sort of rehabilitation, right? I'm sorry, my mind is just, I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to work out so I can improve myself more, and hopefully I won't be as low energy. I think that's all I have to say, though, really. I think that these are, if you can find The Worker, Dominion, and Form, you should try to read it. I think it's a good book. I've only gotten through a couple pages, but I can already see a lot of what he says is relevant to today. And I think that he talks a lot. Can this be the outro music? Sure. Let's go ahead and let me take a look at it. Let me take a look here at the outro music here. Oh, boy. Sorry. I don't know why I'm so sleepy. There we go. Sorry. I'm going to mute it here. Going to get some double audio. We can do this for the outro. Sure. Let me see what we got here. It's taking a minute to load up. Okay, there we go. Let's see what we got here. Sure. Why not? Why not? Just give me a moment. Okay. Let me change the brand here right quick. There we go. That way we get a solid background there. Okay. And we'll do big screen. There we go.
کماندان قطعات تشریفاتی قطعات را به رهبر خلق افغانستان تقدیم کرد.